All right, so you decided to downsize your home here in the Pittsburgh area. There's one mistake that you definitely want to avoid, and that's when you sell your home before you find out what's actually on the market and available to you. You don't want to sell your home and then find out that there isn't anything available that check all your boxes or fit all your criteria that you want. Then you're left stuck scrambling, you're left compromising, you may be overpaying, and worst thing that could happen is you might have to move in temporarily with somebody that you really don't want to live with. So in this video today, we're going to go through a step-by-step downsizing guide to help you avoid that problem altogether. Because done right, downsizing can simplify your life, but done wrong, it can create a lot of unnecessary stress for you. Hey, my name is Shane Woodworth with eXp Realty and Matt Durbin team here in the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, and I'm helping home sellers that are deciding that yes, it is in fact time to downsize. And what I'm finding out most here is they don't need help with just selling the home, but they need help developing a plan to get them all the way through to the end and through their end goal. Now, let's go ahead and walk through a step-by-step process here so that we know exactly how to do it the correct way. All right, so step number one in this process is going to be defining why. Why exactly do you need to downsize right now, or why do you want to downsize right now? I hear people say things all the time like the house is just too big, we don't use this space over here, we want things to be a little easier. That isn't specific enough to actually guide your decisions. All right, what you really need to be figuring out here is, what does my day-to-day life look like after this move? Do I need zero maintenance, or do I want zero maintenance? I don't want to do anything with the snow in the winter. I don't want to cut my grass. I want to have people go ahead and do this for me, or I just don't want to be dealing with that. Do you need to be closer to the family? Do you need to be closer to the grandkids? Do you need to be have everything on one floor? Is that really, really important to you? You can't do steps anymore. So these are the things that are going to help guide your decisions a little better. If you don't have clarity here, then every home you look at is going to be a maybe type of situation. You want to be clear with your goals here so it makes definitely a smoother transaction. All right, so step number two is going to be one of the most important ones. That's knowing what your options are before you sell your home. So you don't want to put your house on the market and sell it and then say, hey, we'll just figure it out afterwards, right? That's where things can go really sideways. You got places like the North Hills area of Pittsburgh where there's high demand for patio homes, for ranch style homes, and condos. But the problem with that is not that there's high demand, but the main problem is that there's low inventory or low supply of it. So then it's an extremely competitive market to be in when you want to buy a patio home or a ranch home or a condo in this area. So you don't want to be in that situation where you get ahead of yourself, you sell the home, and then find out that there isn't anything available for you to check the boxes. And then you're stuck making emotional decisions because you have to move in with someone temporarily or move in a hotel or something, and you start letting your emotions make your decisions for you. And we all know when you make decisions based on emotion that they don't often end up being the right decisions for you. So the key here is to know what your options are and have a plan before you get started. All right, so step number three is going to be understanding your numbers, and that's more than just understanding or knowing what the house is going to sell for or expecting what the house is going to sell for. You want to know your net numbers, which is the most important thing to you as the sellers, understanding exactly what you're going to be walking away with from the closing table. All right, so that's very, very important. Then you're going to want to understand what is the next home going to be costing me, and you're going to want to understand how these numbers are going to affect your overall financial picture. So for instance, we've seen families that are or couples that are selling their home. They think, we have to downsize to something cheaper, and then we actually get in there and we run the numbers, their net numbers, and see what the next home's going to cost them, and they actually end up having a lot more money available to them than they thought, and they can afford a little bit better of a place. And we've also seen that on the opposite side where, I can afford this after we sell the house for $500,000. Well, they didn't think about all the costs and closing costs and stuff that go involved in it, and what their net number is actually going to be was a lot lower. So, and then there's also things when you think about what the next house is going to cost you, there's hidden things in there that people don't quite factor into their monthly payment, and that would be the HOA fees. Those are something that can come up and bite you in the butt, especially at closing. There's oftentimes there's closing fees that have to do with the HOA that you want to be budgeting for as well. So this is one of those situations where working with a professional will definitely help you when they can walk you through the numbers and help clarify and make things a little clearer and give you a little more confidence in moving on to that next home. So step number 4 is going to be that thing that you know you need to do and you kept putting it off, and that's dealing with the stuff. All right, so just keep in mind you've had decades of memories. You may have lived in your house 20, 30, maybe even 40 years. You have a lot of things to go through, and you don't want to be overwhelmed with this, although it's going to feel overwhelming if you don't do it right. So what the plan is here is you want to take maybe one room per weekend. So start 2 to 3 months out from the time that you think you want to put the home on the market and sell it. Start 2 to 3 months out and start knocking out one room every week or one room every weekend, and make it as easy as you can on yourself. Have 3 different piles. You want to have a keep pile, you want to have a sell pile, and you want to have a donate pile. All right, just also understand that this is going to be a difficult thing. This can also be a very emotional thing when you're getting rid of or deciding what memories you want to keep and whatnot, and why you have this and why you have that, and will you ever need it again, or this is sad to give away little Johnny's project from the 2nd grade and stuff like that. So just try to make it as easy as possible on yourself. Make those 3 piles, and just don't be offended if your kids or your family doesn't want all the stuff that you want to donate to them. People just have different styles in certain things. All right, so just don't be too emotional in this. Try not to be too emotional, but just understand it's normal for this to be a difficult situation, and just try to make it as easy on yourself as possible here. 5, and this could quite possibly argue to be the most important part, is your strategy. This is where everything comes together. You need to strategize and figure out, do we need to sell first? Do we need to buy first? Are we going to need to make an offer contingent on our home sale? There's all kinds of things that can come into factor here. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all strategy. All right, so this is going to depend on a few different things. It's going to depend on what your finances are. It's going to depend on what's available in the market. It's going to depend on what your risk level is. Some people want certainty and they want to sell their house first. Some people want that control and they want to find their next home before they sell. All right, so the key here is to develop a plan that strategically helps you keep out or stay out of a bad situation. All right, so once you have that plan in place, step 6 is going to be execution. All right, so this is where we coordinate selling or listing your home, making that purchase of your next home. You're going to want to align movers, and you're going to want to align the closing dates, especially if you need to buy and sell at the same time. You want to align those dates as close to, if not the best case scenario, is to have them on the same exact date, closing for your sale of your home and closing for the purchase of your next home. It makes things a lot easier. Then you're only moving once. When this is done right, that's when everything flows. When it's done wrong, that's when you're going to feel chaotic or stressful. All right, so let's quickly recap what mistakes you want to avoid here. Mistake number 1 you want to avoid is selling without a plan. Mistake number 2 is going to be waiting too long to get started, especially when it comes to decluttering. Mistake number 3 is underestimating how much the emotional side of this is going to factor in, right? It can be extremely emotional and tough to deal with when you're talking about decades of memories. And mistake number 4 is not exploring what your options are for after you sell your home. All right, and all of this can be avoided if you just follow the simple plan. So if you are thinking about downsizing within the next year or two, and you want to talk about your specific situation, maybe what your house is possibly worth, what your options are, what strategy should you follow, call me, text me, or send me an email, and we'll set up a call so we can go through and talk about your specific situation and develop a strategy for you. All right, guys, appreciate you watching. Until next video, keep it real estate.